It's just processing. There you go, ready to go.
Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to Professional Beauty Ireland's very first webinar. We're doing lots of different stuff at the moment. We've got our weekly newsletter, and we've got our magazine, our new magazine coming out at the end of the month, and of course we've got our show in November. So we're kicking off series of webinars, and our first guest is Charlotte Bradshaw. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, how are you?
And Charlotte is the managing director. Hi. There seems to be rain, but it's grand. So Charlotte is the managing director of Bradshaw Salon and Academy. And am I right in saying you've over 10 years experience in the salon business, but then over 20 years experience operating businesses yourself?
Yeah. I was in hospitality before hairdressing. For 20 years, I was a financial controller for a guy here in Ireland who had pubs, clubs and restaurants. So when I moved from hospitality into hairdressing, it was a huge difference. So I was kind of part-time. We have the salon 20 years this year, and I was kind of running it from afar for 10 years. And then 10 years ago, I made the decision to go into the business full-time and kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. So the topic that we decided on today in the midst of the coronavirus crisis was how to hit the ground running when the salon reopens. And of course, we're all in a bit of time of uncertainty at the moment, and we don't know when the restrictions are going to be lifted, but they will be lifted. So I think what you were saying to me was, in terms of hitting the ground running when the salon reopens, it's kind of all about what you do now. In your downtime, and you were talking about the best thing to do is manage the finances.
I think we're all sitting at home with a lot of stuff to do. People are cleaning and baking, doing gardening and stuff. But I think when you have your own business, I think this is a great time to reflect. To kind of maybe have a look at what you could do while you're off. So for me, I think the best thing to do is just break down your business, break it down into your overheads, your costs, your wages, your stock. We can go into them in more detail, but, this is a perfect time to just go ahead and do a full stock take, just to get what's in your salon, what capital you have tied up, not only for insurance reasons, because insurance is a thing at the moment where you need to read your fine print and make sure that you're covered. Because a lot of businesses in the small print say that you're not covered if your premises is unoccupied for 16 days or more. So you need to read your fine print in your insurance contract to make sure, because if you do have a break-in and you're closed due to the COVID, there you might not necessarily be insured.
Okay, right. So everybody needs to go back and check their insurance policies.
Yeah, nearly everybody has a broker. Just pop an email off to your broker and ask him 2 questions. Number 1, most of your insurance policies you have cover, like a turnover cover. Now, if it's not specifically said COVID-19, like they have Legionnaire's disease, they have Spanish flu, they have loads of things listed. But check your policy to see, do they have a pandemic cover? Because what they're trying to do at the moment is get out of paying everybody if they do have a turnover cover. Now, I know the Minister for Finance is talking to all the insurance companies at the moment, because what they're doing is trying to put something in place for when we do go back into business. We're obviously going to be down all this money. So they're trying to put something in place so we have some sort of insurance when we go back to work. So obviously the government would prefer if the likes of the big companies like Aviva and AXA were paying that. So I suppose if you check your small print, I haven't come across anybody yet who has an insurance cover that the insurance are actually paying out. But it's worth, looking at your cover. And seeing 2 things. 1, are you insured for pandemic insurance, loss of revenue? And number 2, are your premises insured if they're left unattended for a certain period of time, because that's usually in the small print. So if we do get to the stage where we do have any sort of looting, that you do have cover if your premises is ruined.
Okay, and I suppose like even the word pandemic would probably not be in the insurance policy, would it? Or would it? You know, the way like it's a word now we're using all the time, but we didn't use it up until about a month ago.
I know, because I think everybody was in denial that it was a pandemic. Nobody wanted to declare it a pandemic, but they do list certain outbreaks in your contract. Because I remember when I first did my contract probably 20 years ago, reading the fine print going, sure, that's mental. When is Legionnaires' Disease going to be out again? But you just don't know, like, you know, what's going to happen. So, you know, insurance companies, you know, we pay all this money to insurance companies, and they just don't want to pay out. So you're either going to, there's no point claiming for a small claim because your insurance goes sky high. You're better off if you have a claim to make sure it's a big claim, because it's just not worth it. But the ISME here in Ireland are doing, it's kind of like a cooperative insurance, which is really good. And, you know, if you go onto the ISME website and have a look at that, they'll explain it to you a little bit better. But it's basically if they can get a load of people together to pay in their insurance to them. You know, it's kind of like it's hard to explain. Actually, it's a big long-winded thing. But if you go onto ISME and you go into insurance, there they'll explain it to you a little bit better. But it's worth looking at, because if you have a smaller claim, it doesn't affect your no claims bonus. Whereas if you're insured directly with AXA, it does.
Okay, perfect. And I suppose we were saying as well that you know, when you sit down and you look at your finances while the salon is closed, one of the major things you're going to be looking at is the wage bill. So I wanted to ask you, you know, what would you say to people about dealing with that in the best way possible? I know you talked about like literally breaking down the cost of the wages and looking at it.
Well, you've two types of costs. You've got your fixed costs. You've got two types of costs. You've got your fixed costs and you've got your variable costs. So your fixed costs would be your rent, your rates, your insurance, and any bank loans you might have. And your variable costs would be your wages, your salaries, your creditors, any credit card charges, pensions, your utilities, and any insurance policies that you might have on life or serious illness or anything like that. So I suppose the first thing for your fixed costs to look at, if you are renting a premises from your landlord, you know, you should have done this already because April rent is due now, but I would ring the landlord. He obviously knows that you're closed, and either, you know, plead to his mercy and see he or she, would they give you a free month's rent, maybe 2 months rent. And if not, would he defer the payments and put them over? Like, we've got another 8 months left in this year. So whatever rent you're not going to pay, can you defer it over the next 8 months? So the first thing I do, the rates I wouldn't be paying, because the government are going to have to do something about rates. Now, I know rates are like, there's nothing sure as death and taxes, but, you know, rates are something you have to pay. When you're in a building, you have to pay the rates on that building. That's just the way it is. But I think the government will do something for companies who've been closed. So if you've been closed for 2 months or 3 months, they have to defer those rates. So what I would say is, don't pay any of your rates at the moment. The way rates work is you have a year to pay them. So you have to have your rates for this year paid by the 31st of December. So I just would stop my payment. We pay ours on direct debit every month. Some people pay it up front, depending on where you are in the country. You know, we're obviously Dublin city centre, so our rates are colossal. And we also have it's something called city centre bids. So that's another rate that we have. So I would suggest to anybody, no matter where you are in the country, not to pay your rates, because I do think the government will do something at a later stage when we come out of it. And it'd be a shame to have wasted your money paying them because they're not going to give you money back. Because if you could pay them, they're going to let you pay them. Insurance, I would make sure that's paid. You have to make sure your insurance paid, just for the reasons that I discussed earlier on, that if you do have a break-in or there's looting going on, or or you have life insurance, or you have like serious illness cover, if you don't pay those premiums, they cancel them. So if you don't pay, if the standing order gets returned the first time, they represent 5 days later. And if you don't pay 5 days later, it's cancelled. And then they send you a letter and they say, if you don't pay this, your insurance is cancelled. So all that money you've paid and you think you're insured, it's gone. And then if you go to get insurance again for like health insurance or life insurance, serious illness, you mightn't get that cover again because that particular cover might be gone, or you might have an illness now that you didn't have when you took the policy out. So I would always make sure, no matter what happens, to make sure your insurance policies are always paid. So that's, and then the last of your fixed loan, fixed costs would be a bank loan that you might have. But again, banks are being really, really reasonable at the moment. And if you have any sort of relationship or a relationship manager, pick up the phone and ring them. If you say you're in a hair or beauty business, they're going to know you're closed. So if they know that you're closed, they're going to go, right, okay, we're not going to get blood out of a stone. So what they'll do is they'll defer the payment, or they'll freeze the payment. Now, a lot of people are lucky they don't have bank loans, but the people who do will have to make that phone call, because if you don't make that phone call and you just ignore the payments and your standing order cancels, you're going to have a black mark on your credit rating, and that's not what you want to go back into with this. So you just have to make sure that that's sorted. Now, the next thing is your variable costs. So they're your fixed costs. There are things you can't do anything about, and then you have your variable costs. So with your variable costs, you'll have your utility bills, which is your heating, your lighting, all that kind of stuff, your telephone. Now, what I would do is, telephone is a bit tricky, because if you're still having your phones answered at the moment, or you're working in your business, even though it's closed and you've got Wi-Fi, I would make sure my phone bill is being paid. But my gas and my electricity bill, they are making provisions in the government for utility bills. So if you don't pay your utility bill for this month and 2 months later you have another one, but in business they're usually monthly, they're not going to cut you off, because they know people are in the predicament that we're in. So again, they're the bills that I wouldn't pay. I mean, this is all about looking at what you have in the bank, and like most of us, it's very small at the moment because there's no turnover coming in. So I would be hanging on to what I have for the vitals, which would be your insurance, maybe your telephone. So I would only pay the emergency stuff, and I would defer the other stuff. Your pensions, you don't have to put anything into a pension. It's up to you. If you don't want to pay this month, you don't have to pay. But you need to check your small print on that again to make sure that you're not defaulting if you're not paying, or if you're standing order. It's always worth your while to pick up the phone and talk communication is key, I think, for everything you do. And then the other thing I would talk about is your credit card. Now, obviously, your credit card charges aren't going to be high because you've got no money coming through. Unless you have an online business, you are going to have money coming through. But I would make sure that my credit card charges are being paid. It's a monthly fee. It's about €20. And then it's a small percentage of whatever card you're taking in. If you don't have an online business, it's a flat €20 plus the VAT. I would make sure that's paid, because you're going to hit the ground running when we do reopen. So you have to make sure that all your ducks are in a row. And the last thing you want to do is open your business and your credit card machines isn't working and somebody doesn't have cash. So I would make sure that they're I would make sure they're sorted. And then the last thing I would talk about is your wages and your salaries. That's because that's your variable cost. So most people have let everybody go. So speaking from experience, we laid 37 people off. We did it a week before the government announced us to do it. So I made sure in that week that all the teams signed up to the pandemic payment. If you're getting help from the government, swallow your pride and take it. Because I know they're offering, if you pay it, if you pay the €350, because it was 2 or 3, it's gone to 350 now. They're saying, if you pay the employee, we'll refund you. But they're going to refund that particular payment at a later date. But they won't refund it if you've taxes outstanding. So I'll give you an example. when you hit the ground running, say for argument's sake, they reopen in May, we hit the ground running. Hopefully we're all going to be out the door. Everybody in the hairdressing beauty industry predominantly gets paid a commission. Therefore, their wages are going to be up because you're going to have a flock of customers, please God. And then your P30 is going to be up. So come to the end of the month, your P30 could be 10 grand, it could be 15, it could be 20, it could be 25 grand. The government will not give you back that 350 you've paid all your staff if you owe that 30 grand. They'll take it off that bill. So if that's the way you want to work your accounts, that's fine. But just be aware, you're not going to get this lump sum to open back up your business, you know, when we do come out of this. So be aware of that. They're also offering the payment where they'll pay up to 70% of your wages. So say, for example, if I wanted to still keep working in the business and drawing a wage, if the wage was there, and I normally get paid €800 a week, they will pay 70% up to €410. So say, for example, you're on €1,000 a week as the owner of a business and you normally take home 1,000. They are not going to pay €700 of that. They are going to pay a maximum of 410, and that's if you're eligible. You have to give them your bank statements, you have to give them deposit statements, you have to give them a full exposure to show them you have no money and you can't afford this, and that's why they pay the 70%. So be very careful. People think that the government are giving them 410 and it's €60 bigger than the pandemic payment, but there are ramifications to that. And when we come out of all of this, there is going to be a dedicated team making sure that we all abided by the rules. So be very, very careful that you're not overstepping the mark or being dishonest in anything that you're doing. So I would just be careful of that. You know, if your staff are on the pandemic payment, it's up to 12 weeks. Hopefully we're not open, we're not closed for 12 weeks, but let them be on the pandemic payment. They're supposed to be self-isolating. I've briefed all our staff whereby I told them, you know, don't pay your rent, you know, do a deal with your landlord and say, I'm not paying my April rent, or I'm not paying my May rent, and I'll pay you over the remainder of 8 months of the year. Now, in fairness, most of our staff have done that, and their landlords have either given them a free month or they've reduced their amount of rent, or else they're deferring it till the end of the year. So because obviously everybody in this business will, or, you know, make more money in December anyway. So that's one way. So I've told the staff, don't pay your utility bills, don't pay your rent, self-isolate for the weeks that we're off. And the €350 should be more than enough to feed you, you know. So that seems to be working. I know it's different for everybody because they have dependents or they have mortgage. But again, when I spoke to the staff, the ones that we did that did have mortgages, they went to their mortgage companies and spoke to them. And again, they gave them either a 1 month, 2 month or 3 month sabbatical on their mortgages. So some of the mortgage companies put it at the end of the term. And some of them actually added it on. So we say like you might have 10 years left on your mortgage at 12 months in a year. It's 120 payments. They're dividing your payments that you're missing by 120 and adding on the little bit every month, which I think is a great way to do it, because you're not extending your term, you're not breaking your terms, you're just spreading it over. So I think that's a great way to do it.
So that brings me into that question that I was going to ask you, which you sort of, you know, referred to anyway, about the, you know, in this, it's a very uncertain time and it's a very difficult time for everyone. And with the laying off of staff, you know, keeping morale up at the same time. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like the way you did that was communication.
Well, I think communication, no matter what you're doing in work, business, any part of your life, communication is key. If you don't talk to somebody and they don't know how you're feeling, you know, you need to talk. My biggest thing is we've 37 staff. We've a super team. It's taken us 20 years to get where we are. And I want to make sure they're looked after. I didn't want to lay them off, but unfortunately, this is where we're at the moment in this time. And I had to lay them off. But because I had to lay them off, I wanted to make sure they were set up. So I set up a broadcast list. I don't know whether you're familiar with it. So on WhatsApp, you have your normal WhatsApp group. We all have millions of them between school and work and friends and whatever. But you can set up a broadcast list. And in a broadcast list, that allows you to send a message to have the amount of, I think it holds up to 1,000 people, but you can send a message to as many people as you like. And when they answer you personally. So the people in the group don't see their answers. It comes into you under their name. So it's very, very private. So what I do is I send out a couple, I don't want to bombard the staff, but I send out a couple of texts during the week. And the rules are they have to come back and they have to answer me with a thumbs up or a thanks or I am what I am. So I always, I send out a text going, did you get your payment? How are you feeling? Have you gone out for exercise? I send them like apps for mindfulness. I've sent them to Joe Wick's PE app. And I'm just kind of keeping constant communication. Dylan Zooms them every single Friday night. The rule is you get yourself a glass of some alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage and we all have a Zoom call and we all come in on it. And then we go around each of the cameras going, how are you? Any news? What did you do this week? And blah, blah, blah. So it's a communication. There was one person wasn't on it on Friday and we bombarded them with text messages, phone calls, just to make sure they're all right because people do suffer from mental health and you want to make sure nobody falls through the cracks. And also, I don't want the team, I want to bring the team back. And when we come back to work, I want a happy, healthy, and they're all dying to get back into work. So the biggest issue we have is clients ringing them saying, can you come round to my house and do me hair? And we spoke to the team before we closed saying, look, lads, this is good. This is going to happen. And, you're just going to defeat the purpose because if one person goes and does it, you're affecting the rest of the team. Because if one of their clients, you start doing their hair at home, when we reopen, they're going to go, well, you're doing it cheaper at home. Would you still do it? You're making the extra few quid, but you're feeding them out. You're biting the hand that feeds you and you're letting the rest of the team down. So in fairness, every time one of the clients rings them or texts them, they ring us or they text us and say, look, I just had Josephine Blogs on. She's looking for her, somebody to cut her hair or she's looking, can we do this? So I get Dylan to ring them or I ring them and say, look, can we do anything for you? Can we send you out a spray? Can we put your booking in for when we hopefully, so we've all our bookings in for May. So, my idea is to get that calendar bloody full. So as soon as Leo gives us the go ahead, we even have plans in place that if he goes, okay, you can open shorter hours, just to kind of drip feed the business back open. We have, we've measures in place. This is what we're going to do if that happens. If he lets us open fully, this is the measure we have in place. So I think it's all while we're sitting at home, have your forward thinking done now so that when we do get the thumbs up to open, that we hit the ground running.
Thumbs up.
And that well into my question about the tips on managing the roster. You've already sort of looked at that, have you?
Well, we have. Absolutely.
You're looking at it and figuring out, because I suppose some salons some salons will probably maybe get back to normal bit by bit. So maybe they wouldn't necessarily be bringing all the staff back full time from the beginning. So is it a good idea to look at it again? You're sitting at home in your downtime.
Most people have a computerized booking system now. Very few have the manual one. And I have spent the last 3 weeks, I have the Purr guys in Forest blistered because I don't use the till and work because we have managers, receptionists, all that kind of stuff. So I don't necessarily have to go near the Forest system only to pull my reports for when I'm doing my book work. But what I did do for the last 3 weeks is I've educated myself on how to use the system. So what I've done is I make sure I'm keeping in contact with our clients. And a bit like what I said earlier, it's all about keeping in contact with your team, but you also have to keep in contact with your clients because you have to let them know that you're thinking of them. And, so what I do is I'm sending out texts to them. I'm getting them booked in for May because what's going to happen is we have so many thousand live clients. As soon as the window is opened, we're going to have an influx of people wanting to book. And then we're going to go, I'm sorry, we're booked out. I'm sorry to booked out. So I've spoken to all the team. The team are like, look, we'll work 7 days a week. We'll do all the late nights. We'll fit everybody in. So we're communicating that to our customers going, look, I know you want to do this and I know your highlights need to be done, but please, 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 hang on, wait for the professionals. We'll fit you in no matter what, around you. That's what we'll do. So that's mainly, that's mainly what we do. We're keeping in contact with them all the time to try hang on to them, because everybody that's on this webinar knows how hard it is to get a client in your front door. You want to hang on to them, and the last thing you want to do is stick your head in the sand, ignore them, and let them think that you've forgotten about them. So I think the little odd text saying, look, so we've our phones manned, we have our emails manned, we've updated our online shop, so there's loads of things that you can do to kind of keep you, and also to your benefit as well. Like, I know you want to ask me about stock, so I'll just run into that. But, this is a great time to get your stock on hand counted, because people forget you've all your capital tied up under your roof. It's all in your professional stock, your retail stock, it might be your toilet rolls. That's all money tied up, lads. And it's all this money that you've spent so hard to generate, and now it's being distributed everywhere in your business. You need to find out where your money is being spent in your business, and what a better time to do it than now. I mean, I would be going through, which I have done, my Musgraves invoices, and like I had a freak attack the other day because we're paying like over €1 for a toilet roll. I'm like, if you go down to the shopping centre in Aldi, you'll get a toilet roll cheaper than €1. So, I mean, sometimes it's not necessarily cheaper to go to a wholesaler's, depending on how big your business is. Like if you're Peter Mark and you're 77 salons, you don't, you're not going to go to Aldi and fill your trolley full of toilet rolls. But if you're a small little business and you're maintaining your costs, these are the things you should be looking at. Like just even your Dettol spray for wiping down your counters, it's dearer in Musgraves than it is in Tesco's. So, it's things like that, that you could, and I know it's a funny saying, but if you look after the pennies, the pounds will look after themselves. So, so getting back to the stock, I think the main thing is to get a stock count done. Find out what you're holding in retail. And the good thing about that is when you start counting your stock for your retail, then you'll go, I have those products months. I have those products since last year. It's a great way of looking at what you have. And then when you've got a full true list of what you have, then start putting in incentives in place. So go the first week I'm open, or even when you're not open, your physical doors might be closed, but your virtual doors are open. So if you can, people can sell on Instagram, you can sell on Facebook, you can add, go onto your WordPress website, add on a little thing saying, ring this number and we'll see if you have your favorite products. Put a thing out on Facebook and say, look, I've got 20 of these products left. They're normally €15. Selling them today for €10. Find out what it costs you for postage and packaging and send them out. The post offices are still open, but it's a great way of shifting old products. Do a special on them, 20% off, get rid of them, or else put something in place that when you go back to work and you have a full list of all the stock you want to shift, you say to your staff, okay, I've got 10 of these products. Whoever sells these products gets, I don't know, gets 2 hours sleep in on Saturday. You don't have to come in till 11 o'clock on Saturday. Because staff are incentivized by time off, like extra holidays and extra money. And that's how you incentivize them. So you put together an incentive package to the staff to help you shift your old products that you're spending time now counting. And also for insurance reasons, some people underinsure their products. So if your building was to burn down tomorrow, what would it cost you to reopen that? And I'm talking about, your products, retail and professional, and the likes of your toilet rolls and your computers and everything. That needs to be right when you're because insurance companies do not want to pay out. So you have to make sure you know where your money is going, albeit on retail, professional or cleaning products. So it's a great time now to look at that.
Okay, and we have just some questions came in there from people watching. So I might just ask you them. One person has said, do you think that by following guidance and keeping some staff on with a 70% wage supplement, that the government will want to see that you've got no money in the bank?
100%. You have to, if you go in and you apply for that, because they don't do it straight away, you have to send them in your bank statements showing them you don't have any money in the bank. So there are guidelines. You have to qualify for this. It's not like, see, with the pandemic payment, you could just go online or you could post in the letter and apply for it, and they gave it to you. Once you looked at the payroll, your payroll now is all automated. So when I pay the staff on Monday, for it to go through to the bank, I have to press a button that sends it straight to Ross. So Ross know by Monday afternoon what all my staff got paid. So therefore, they know what you have and haven't been paying. So if you go and you apply for this, there's certain criteria that you have to adhere to before they'll give it to you. And one of them is you need to send them your bank statements to prove that you have no money. So you need to be very careful, because you might be able to send them your current account that has no money. But if you have a deposit account or a revenue account or a rent account that has got money in it, and you can prove that you're slightly viable, you will be penalised, you'll be made pay all the money back, and you'll also get penalties on top of that on interest. So you need to be very, very, very careful.
Okay. Next question. Somebody is saying, first of all, thank you so much for this. I think we will all be echoing that. And said, I signed up for the pandemic payment myself. I applied 3 weeks ago and 1 week ago, as I thought I had made an error on the first one. No payment yet, though. Do you know if there's a delay?
There's a huge delay at the moment. So there's a lot of so there's two ways of doing it. You can go on to mygovid.ie and you set up your MyGov account. Now you need your let me see, do I have it here? Yeah. You need your PPS card. It looks like this. It's green, has your photograph on the front, your PPS number. If you don't have that card, you can't verify your account. However, without your account being verified, you can apply online for the pandemic payment. And it allows you then to watch at what status that's at. So I'll give you an example. We've 37 staff. They all got paid, bar 2. So they all got the 2-3 the first week, the 350 the second week, the 350 the third week. I had 2 girls who didn't get anything any week. One of the reasons for one of the girls was human error. When the girl was inputting her manual piece of paper that she posted, she entered her date of birth wrong. And because it didn't tally with the system, the computer said no, and she didn't get paid. She came back to me. I then sent her an email and I sent her the phone numbers. And when she eventually got through after holding for 1 hour, they told her it was human error, that she needed to reapply. So she reapplied and she got it this week for the first week, but didn't get anything for the last 2 weeks. And when she asked if they were backdating it, they said they may backdate it, but not right now, future down the line, which I don't think it's going to happen, but that's the way it is. And then the second girl, they sent her an email saying she isn't employed. But obviously she's employed with us, and so I emailed the staff all their pay slips on a Monday. So she had to email her pay slip to the local central office, who then sent it on, and she got her first payment yesterday. So there is a humongous delay. There's about, I held for about 40 minutes, and they told me that there's about 16,000 applications still unprocessed as of today. So you got to remember, if you look at the figures last night on the news, there was 709,000 people who are on unemployment, whether it's job seekers or the pandemic. And if you remember, before this, we were at the lowest in history of people on the live register. Yeah. So if you've got 700,000 people, and no disrespect, lads, but we are dealing with civil servants, and there are going to be human errors. You're dealing with humans, and you're dealing with not very fast humans. So you've got like loads of things against you. Payments are coming. You should get an email, but what I would suggest to that person is to go into mygovid.ie, set up an account, and also apply online. It's no harm.
Okay, great. And then just one more question that came in there was, can you sell online if you are in receipt of the COVID-19 payment?
Now, this is a grey area. If you're a sole trader, I think there are ramifications because that's classed as income. So if you're a sole trader and you have an online website and you're selling a bottle of shampoo for 20 euros, that's regarded as 20 euros income to you because you're a sole trader. And if you signed on as pandemic, you're saying that you're not in receipt of any income. Whereas if you're a limited company and you're selling online, the limited company, the money is coming into the account. And even though it's only small, it's not enough to pay a wage. It still sits in the company. Whereas with a sole trader, it's classed as income into you because you're a sole trader. So it's a very, very grey area, and she needs to talk to her accountant about that before she goes online or claims that pandemic payment, because that they will look at when we come out of this. There's going to be loads of businesses that aren't going to come back in. There are loads of businesses that will come back in, but you can be guaranteed, as taxes are, as guaranteed as death, they will get around to you eventually. And this period in time will be the most audited period. Maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years. You've got to remember, you have to keep your documents for 6 years. So they've 6 years to investigate this period in this country's history. So be very, very careful. But I would seek professional advice before I take the pandemic payment, or before I jeopardize that payment for the sake of maybe 50 quid or 100 quid a week online sales.
Okay, great. And the last question then, which was back to me, the one that I was asking you was, and I know it's probably hard to quantify, but if there was like one piece of advice that you would give to people during this time, if you had to narrow it down to maybe one thing, what would that be?
Don't bury your head in the sand. Sometimes I suffer from anxiety, and sometimes, when you think, oh, I have to do that, you'll do everything except that thing you have to do, because you don't want to face the reality of it. But then once you do it, you kind of go, you know what, that wasn't so bad. So one thing I would say to you is, if you're a sole trader or a limited company, ask your accountant or your bookkeeper for a set of management accounts, not audited accounts, because there's the difference between management accounts and audited accounts is your audited accounts are summarized. They're all squished together. They're very limited information, and they're the ones that get lodged to the company's office. Management accounts give you a full breakdown of where all your money that's coming in the door goes. Because sometimes you go, wow, we had a really good week. And then you go, where's all my money gone? Management accounts tell you that. So if you've got time, grab a cup of tea, put your glasses on, sit down and get your management accounts and start from the top. And go through every single entry, your sales, your hair sales, you might have makeup sales, you might have nail sales, you might have beauty sales. Go through them all, see where you can make a change. Then you have your cost of sales. Make sure, if you're a business that you pay commission, that your salaries that are on commission are in your cost of sales, not in your operating expenses. Some people mess that up, because if you're running an office, if I'm running an office and I have my staff, my wages are not my cost of sales. They're in my overhead expenses. They're in my expenses. But if I own a salon, I need those salaries to generate my sales. So therefore, they're a cost to me to generate my sales. So anything that you need to generate those sales should be in your cost of sales. That goes for your products, whatever you buy to generate that, and your wages if you're our cost of sales. And then underneath, so you have your sales, less your cost of sales gives you your gross profit. And underneath then you should have a list of expenses. That's what you need to spend your time looking at all this time that we're off. Break it down into what you're paying in insurance. Can you get your insurance cheaper? Can you get your toilet rolls cheaper? Can you get your cleaning products cheaper? Can you get your colour cheaper? Are you spending enough money with your suppliers that you can go back to them and say, I want a discount, or I want every 10 tubes of colour I buy, I want one free? So, there's loads of ways to do it. And remember, all your creditors are still working from home. Your banks are still working from home. If all your money is coming in through credit card payments, Therefore, like for us, 95% of our business is credit cards. I was able to go back to my credit card supplier and argue with them, and I got a reduction in my fees because I said, I'm actually going to move them if you don't give me a discount. So their attitude is, am I going to lose all this money, or will I give her a small discount? So lads, it's like Tesco's. Every little helps. Go through every one of your expenses and try change it. And then when you go back in, please God, when we all open, you've got a clear mind. You know what's holding in your capital. You know where your money is in your business. You know your insurance inside out. You know what rates, your rent, tax. You should have all of that stuff then under your business, and you'll go back in fighting strong, and you'll be more adamant than ever to watch your pennies when you go back in.
Brilliant. That's all brilliant advice. I'm just thinking of you start saying something about like that people are using this time, that they're baking and they're gardening.
Yeah.
I'd say anybody after listening to you now throwing the flour in the bin, going, oh my God, I have so much to do. Because you've had so much advice about like how you can be busier than ever during this time.
Well, I bake a lot. I bake.
So thank you so much for joining us, Charlotte.
Yeah, no worries. You're very welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for it. It was our first webinar, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we got the questions in, and it was great. And we'll be back next week, I think next Tuesday again. So everybody keep an eye out on the website for news alerts about what time we'll be tuning in next week, but it should be the same time. So Charlotte, again, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Thanks a million.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. Stay safe. Bye. Keep an eye out on the website for news alerts about what I'm tuning in next week.